Somebody that I used to know is both one of music's greatest success stories and biggest mysteries at the same time. This was a song made by Gaultier at his parents' home that went on to be a global phenomenon. I have a copy of it here, and here's everything he's made since. For an artist who started making music in his bedroom, it was a dream come true. But when it did, he turned down millions of dollars that the song made, and announced that there would be no more new music. What happened to Gaultier? Like many young musicians, Gaultier started making music at home in his bedroom. There are a few ways you can do this if you're on a budget, recording all the instruments yourself or using virtual instruments. But another way which Gaultier used extensively is sampling. Sampling allows you to take an extract from an already existing song, and with a bit of manipulation, you can start to create something original of your own. But unlike many other musicians that use sampling, Gaultier manages to really cleverly weave this together with songwriting. This makes perfect sense when you hear him talk about his influences.
I guess I listen to lots of different kind of, I'd say, left field pop music. Or, look, some of it might be considered quite mainstream for some people, but I really like artists like Kate Bush and Peter Gabriel, Depeche Mode, KLF, bands who kind of work within kind of pop music world, but I think do something really refreshing and exciting.
But his greatest influence from his creative process came from sampling.
Sample-based artists have had, quite an give me a lot, kind of ideas for how you can make music by pinching small bits of sound and collaging into new songs.
This crossover between songwriting and sampling is clear just by listening to some of his early songs, like Learn a Little Givin' and Lovin', which contains a drum sample from the Ronettes' Be My Baby. And Out Here in the Cold, which samples Nina Simone playing piano. Darling, don't you know I can't stand And this do-it-yourself approach to music making stretched beyond the music itself, with Gaultier hand-drawing the tracklist to all 50 copies of his debut EP. It's perfectly fine to aspire towards a more traditional route of having a team of people working in an expensive studio, but Gaultier never worked like this, instead preferring to stick to his own path. And this isn't a bad thing. In fact, if you can do this in a creative way, it's much more authentic than trying to be something you're not.
Yeah, so I kind of started just collecting anything and everything that looked interesting to me and that I had no idea what it sounded like.
And this is where Gaultier first found success, finding sounds and inspiration from his own life and turning this into a creative way of making music. And not only playing around with sounds and ideas, but transforming this into a finished product, all on his own. But it's also not fair to say that Gaultier wasn't searching for mainstream popularity and success. He would send CDs of his music to every radio station and record label he could find, following up with a call after they'd been delivered. And after a couple of years of releasing some singles and demo EPs by himself, in 2003 he was offered his first distribution deal. So he compiled some of the music he'd made over the last couple of years, and released his debut album, Boardface.
The first album was kind of a result of maybe 3 years of just starting to discover sampling for the first time, having a computer at home that was my own that I could make music on for the first time, and just making lots of tracks, and I probably made 30, 40 tracks, and then the 10 or 11 tracks that are on Boardface just felt like the right collection from everything I'd finished in that time.
Although the album mostly stayed within an Australian audience, it was met with positive reviews, and most importantly, it gave validation to Gaultier's creative process. Everything seemed set for Gaultier to continue making more music and to continue reaching a wider audience. But everything was about to change, and his creative process would have to change with it. In 2004, the year after his debut album was released, his parents decided to sell their house where Gaultier had been living and making music. And this left him at a loose end. He spent the following year moving between different shared houses, taking his homemade studio with him, and working normal jobs to try and sustain his music making. Not only was it physically more difficult to find a consistent working environment, each space offered different acoustics and palettes of sound. If you're impressed by Gaultier's creative process, my next video is going to be on the Beatles' work ethic, so make sure you subscribe to see that. Gaultier had an important strength, which was to find inspiration from the world around him and turn this into music. For many musicians or artists, limitations or barriers to creativity can lead to overthinking or making excuses. which is understandable if you're moving between different spaces and having to use different equipment. But what was so great about Gautier is that he realised that these limitations could actually be a source for creativity. And embracing and working within these limitations results in music that only he could have produced. His debut album was full of sounds from his parents' record collection and record shops in Australia, and his second album is full of sounds that reflect this difficult time, moving between shared houses and different jobs. Even the name of this second album, Like Drawing Blood, is a reference to the difficulty in just making it.
Well, that album was obviously named after the suggestion that it was a difficult experience, that it was like, taking a part of myself, a lifeblood.
It was a hard album to write for me because almost heaps of times, at least every month in the maybe 2 years that I spent writing the record, I was ready to just kind of go, what am I doing? This is no good, or it's too hard, or I'm never going to, finish an album. So it was quite a challenging thing to continue to go, this is worth keeping to do and, keeping going with this.
Like Drawing Blood gave Gautier the greatest commercial success he's seen so far, with the album going platinum in Australia and winning a number of awards as well. Although he was yet to break through internationally, the success of the album exposed him to a new audience and allowed him to continue touring, and also gave him the financial freedom that he'd been lacking so far in his career.
I guess as an independent musician, I think over the last 5 years, putting out my own records, one of the things I found the hardest at the start, trying to do everything myself, was just, getting access to things.
But the real success for Gautier was that the album allowed him to establish a permanent home to make music. The only question now was, what lied ahead for Gautier? I'd just like to take a moment to talk about today's sponsor, Lalal.ai. I'm so pleased to be working with a company that I actually use all the time. You may have noticed that within these videos I use the original music, but I remove the vocals so that it isn't too distracting. Lalal.ai allows you to isolate and extract a wide range of instruments, and I can honestly say it works so well, especially for musicians like Gautier who use sampling within their music. Let's see how well this works with this Gautier song.
You didn't have to cut me off.
Their latest AI tool allows you to upload a fully mixed song and change the voice. It's completely free to use. I'll put a link in the description so you can try for yourself. Thanks to Lalal.ai for sponsoring this video. With a permanent space and growing audience, Gautier was able to spend more time crafting music than ever before. As always, this music would demonstrate Gautier's ability to take inspiration from his own life and turn this into music. Only this time, it would be more personal and introspective. His third